So I get to talk about what we did to try to change staffing issues during the COVID-related problems that I'm sure everybody in here experienced. And I can bore you a little bit with some stories that we all experienced, but we went from 80% turnover in 2019 to 90% in 2020. And then 2021, we went up to 154% team turnover. And we're talking about 190 restaurants over 6 states. And in the QSR space, we haven't seen, in our organization, we haven't seen turnover over 100% in probably 15 years. So to hit 154, we're like, what in the heck is going on? Everybody's complaining. They can't staff anybody. So we reviewed what are we going through. There's this great resignation that happened. I'm sure some of you saw people leave their jobs. People maybe within your own organizations decided to leave. Some folks, when it was time to come back to work, decided not to come back, or they came back for a little while and then bailed. But we had to figure out what to do about it. In 2020, a lot of people started working from home. Working from home created all kinds of new challenges, but also a lot of freedoms. If you're working from home, I'm sure everybody has seen similar things to this. I know I've done Zoom meetings with both grandkids and dogs hanging off of me, but people never had that same freedom before. They had to get up, they had to go to work. They came home. It was part of life. The concept of being able to stay at home just wasn't on their radar. People adjusted to it and they got used to it, and people started having some fun with it. Anybody ever do Zoom meeting with sweatpants? I know I have. And then people started recognizing that there's changes in their home finances. If you wanted to get a haircut, at least in some areas, it was a little more difficult. Some parts of the country, it wasn't. But you had choice of just letting it grow out. You could shave it off. Or if you're a certain congresswoman from California, you can force the salon to open against regulations. But all this is like cost savings, right? And then people that did have to go out, time was incredible. Western Washington, anybody live where there's traffic? Seattle area is wonderful. I have a commute. There's 3 days a week I go to the office. If I leave at 4 in the afternoon, I get home at 7 o'clock at night. If I wait until 6 o'clock to leave, I get home between 7:15 and 7:30. Traffic during late 2020, early 21 was crazy in Seattle. It's like I'd leave a place, I'm like, it only took me 20 minutes to get from Tacoma to Olympia? That's usually an hour drive. What the heck? Everybody was experiencing this. The other thing they experienced is their cars didn't start wearing out. U.S. Department of Transportation said that there are 430 billion fewer miles driven in 2020 versus 2019. If you don't drive 430 billion miles, the cars don't wear out. So then you don't have to replace the car. Thankfully, because cars weren't available later. But when you're not paying for dry cleaning, and you're not buying haircuts, and you're not taking care of your car, and then your car is paid off and not worn out, a lot of people recognize that maybe a 2-income household wasn't contributing as much as they thought it was. Some people thought they had to work full-time, and they found that they could actually contribute as much to their home working part-time by reducing the other costs. They're not paying after-school daycare if they can work 5 hours while the kid's at school. There's a lot of interesting things that we found. But above all, people retired. People who found that they could afford not to work decided they weren't gonna. In August of 21, 1 million people retired. During 2021, yet 1 month, 1 million people decided to retire. That's all-time record. An additional 1.5 million people in 2021 decided to retire early. They didn't work till age 65. They said, we're done. I don't have to, we don't need to, I'm leaving the workforce. Other people realized that working from home, they had the ability to freelance their talents. Freelance tax returns in 2021 hit $1.3 trillion in the US. All those folks leaving the workforce put some pressures on the industry. Hard to describe, but we've got people that they're in an entry-level job and they're seeing all these vacancies. They can go pretty much anywhere and get a job, but there's a lot of uncertainty. They've been managing all kinds of uncertainties. For a while, you could not find toilet paper. How ridiculous is that? Anybody ever have trouble? You go to the store and you're like, what the heck? Yeah. Drove us a little nuts. Questions. The doctor thing. When can I go to the doctor? In Washington, where I'm from, the king of Washington declared by edict that all non-emergent medical procedures were postponed. So, March 20th of 2020, I broke a tooth. I was eating popcorn, and I broke one of my molars, and I had an exposed nerve. And I called the dentist, and I get an after-hours line. And I call the after-hours line, and they can't help me. Because on March 19th, the dentist office had to close for anything that's not an emergency. Had to be a medical emergency, not a painful one. I was told that if I wanted to get help, I had to let it get infected, go to the emergency room, and get referred. There's a lot of folks that had interesting situations. I had a friend that needed ACL surgery. Nope, you can run around on crutches. You can use your knee scooter. You don't have to have that repaired. I ended up using a water pick with hydrogen peroxide for 18 months until I could go to the dentist and pack it with wax every day. That was my lovely tooth story. But when people are dealing with all these uncertainties, a lot of times people stay in a bad job just because they're willing to deal with it. They don't want to deal with change. But when you throw all the uncertainties at them, one more change isn't that big a deal. I don't know if you could drive 5 miles without seeing active recruiting advertising. We saw banners across the freeway advertising for people to come to police departments. Saw $30,000 lateral move bonuses. Quit your department, come to ours, 30 grand. And that's plastered across an overpass. And it was ridiculous. That affected some other things. People were leaving because they could upgrade their job. Entry-level workers could get another job. Jobs that had prerequisites, the prerequisite turned into, 1, will you show up? And 2, are you teachable? I don't care if you got a degree anymore. I just want you to show up and be willing to learn. We'll teach you. Just be here. We lost people in the quick service restaurant industry to other jobs. We also went on a wage war with other people in our industry. We saw wages increase by 35% over 2 years, and people are bouncing back and forth. Did we have a staffing shortage or a staffing crisis? I'd say a staffing shortage is when you don't have enough people. A crisis is when you don't have enough people and you also don't have any applications. If you can't find somebody. We asked that question, and we found out that we didn't have a crisis. We were actually hired more people in 2021 than we did in 2020. We couldn't staff shifts because we didn't have trained people available, and the numbers kept dwindling, but we'd hire people, they'd stay for a week and they'd go somewhere else. We'd hire people, stay for a week and go somewhere else. We had to ask ourselves, what's going on? How can we staff the shifts? First off, it was incredibly stressful. Dining rooms are closed. The shift is short. Customers are frustrated because they've got all this crap in their life. And customers start taking that out on employees. So then the employees don't want to deal with it. They leave. They're on their way home. Oh, they're offering an extra $1 an hour over there. These guys aren't offering any other extra money, but we had a competitor that was offering $300 if somebody would, on day one, and another $300 after 30 days. $600 hiring bonus for fast food work. So we're paying gift cards to people. We need to cover a shift. You don't want to come to work? Okay, I'll give you a $50 gift card. Okay, we got no takers at 50. It's a $100 gift card. You don't have a ride to work? No problem. I'll send an Uber. In 2021, just in our 65 Western Washington stores, we spent $62,000 on gift cards to staff our stores. Our competitors, meanwhile, were closing early. We had a lot of competitors that used to be 24 hours that are now closing at 10 p.m. And we had people that used to be open for breakfast, waiting and not opening until 10 a.m., which made our late nights interesting to staff. Created a whole new staffing challenge for us. Usually 10 at night to 2 a.m., dining room's closed. You might run with 4, 6 people. You might do $400 or $500 would be a busy hour that time of night. With bringing in delivery and then our competitors closing because they weren't spending the money to keep people in, we've got stores that are doing $4,000 between 10 at night and 2 in the morning. We've got a store in Redmond, Washington that does more between 10 p.m. and close than some stores do all day. On a Friday night, it's nothing for them to do $6,000 from 10 at night to close. We had a $2,200 hour just before Thanksgiving from midnight to 1 a.m. In fast food, that's a busy, busy hour. So we need 14, 15, 16 people willing to work at 1 a.m. Very difficult. And then we ran into problems with our distribution company. When you have COVID break out in the distribution warehouse, now the guys in the warehouse aren't there to fill the trucks. When a driver gets sick, there's laws that prevent another driver from working a double shift. They can only work a certain number of hours. So you order, say, 450 pieces to come on a delivery, and they say your delivery's delayed, 72 hours. Well, wait a second, I get 2 deliveries a week. My 3-day truck is now 3 days late. That's a problem. But then the 450 pieces I ordered, I only got 150 because they didn't have enough people to fill the whole load. So they only filled part of the load. And we're like, what the heck? How do we do this? Now, luckily, our owner is smarter than I am because I'm trying to figure out what in the world we're going to do. How are we going to move food around? What's going to happen? And our owner's like, why don't we buy our own trucks? So we bought 2 refrigerated trucks, And then we found a couple of people that had CDL licenses and some of their own trucks. We found 2 independents that would go down and pick up 65,000 pounds of food and bring it up. But then we could pick that food up and distribute it. You know, they wouldn't stop at every store. They'd stop like 3 places, and we'd have to meet them, fan out. So in 2021, in 1 month in 2021, we spent just over $10,000 on renting U-Haul trucks so that we could meet the trucks that we paid to go get the food. So our managers are dealing with the logistics problems, the staffing problems, and trying to stay afloat. Everybody's working together. I was unloading trucks. Our vice president of finance, she's 62 years old. She showed up on a Saturday to help unload a truck. Everybody's working together, but it's not enough. Employees are still frustrated. And we had to say, what the heck can we do? And then cash loss hit. Cash loss hit 0.27%. Normal for us is around between 0.05 and 0.10. And we're talking to our area coaches, we're talking to our restaurant managers. They don't have time to look. And when we dig a little deeper, the real motivation is they don't want to look. If I find that somebody stole something, I'm going to have to fire them. I'm working my ass off already. I'm already working 6, 7, 12-hour days. I don't want to fire them. If they're going to take an extra $20, that's cheaper than the gift card I'm going to pay to get somebody to come cover their shift. That was an actual conversation. So why does loss prevention have to feel like it works in contest with our operators instead of in cooperation with them? And we had a couple of very long discussions about what can we do differently? How can we help our teams feel better about what's going on? Because they're not. And do we keep doing everything the same way, or do we rise and meet the challenge? To rise and meet the challenge required us to think a little bit differently. So our idea of thinking differently is to re-aim cameras, to look at the customers, to provide protection to our employees. Let our employees know they're being protected and that we're there for them, not to stare at them. Now, can we still see them and still see what they do? Yes. Did we add more cameras? Yes. But we stated the reasons for it as being to help protect them. We had some really interesting things come up since the state of Washington won't prosecute theft because they feel that the people need it. They're so distraught, they must need it if they're willing to steal it. So we've had vagrants come into a restaurant and chase employees out of the back of the store with a club, wooden sticks, put their sticks down, wash their hands, and make themselves some food, and then leave. The police won't even respond. Had a situation where one of our stores got robbed. The openers showed up in the morning and they see people in the office working on the safe with power tools. They called 911. I got called. I was asleep in bed. I got up, jumped through the shower, threw clothes on, drove 45 minutes to the restaurant. I beat the police. The police did not respond until almost an hour after I got there. It took them almost 2 hours to respond. Because nobody was in the store, we weren't threatened. So it's better to let them leave and then come investigate later. They took $17 in change from the cash registers that were left open. They took the loose coins, and they did almost $30,000 damage to the building between the door that they bent the door frame, they damaged the walk-in door, prying it open, they bent the walk-in cooler door. And then when the alarm went off, after they had cut the power to the building, they decided that they must have missed something. And they took a Sawzall and they cut every network cable going into the network switch and the whole rack. And then they ripped stuff out of the rack and threw it to the ground. And the police were like, whatever, take a couple hours to get there. We had someone force a window open, climb into the window, manipulate the till. The employees are on the phone with 911. Till pops, they take the cash, they climb back out. 45 minutes later, the police haven't shown up. They call back, when are you coming? They give them directions on how to file a report online. Same store. This was in Puyallup, Washington. I was at the store, and some homeless guys were harassing our customers for money in the drive-thru. I told them they had to stop doing that, and they picked up a broom, and they started hitting me with the broom handle. I called the police, and the police showed up and said, we can't chase them. They went off into the woods, and there's a homeless camp in there. Their protocol for going in there, 4 officers and a K-9. So 1 responding officer cannot go in there, and they won't devote those kind of resources to a simple assault. So our employees need protection, and they can't all feel safe at work. They need to. If they don't feel safe at work, and they feel like we're Big Brother staring at them, it's not helping. We have to be able to give them a way to feel supported. I covered some of this already. Nick helped us in a great way in recognizing that we can use audio to help support our employees. So we focus a lot on suggestive selling, probably more than anybody. If you've ordered a Taco Bell in Western Washington, you've probably been asked if you want to add sour cream to your product or double the meat. They're simple products to add on, and they're high profit margin add-ons. We rank our stores based off percentage of success per transaction. So if you order 3 tacos on 1 order and you add sour cream to all 3 of them, that's 3 add-ons, 1 transaction, 300%. In 2020, we ran 56% as a company. We had 56% success with our add-ons. We tied the video systems into the drive-thru headsets, and we used the drive-thru headsets, the conversation, to find successful order-taking practices and role model that for people who are struggling. We don't confront people that are struggling with their own voice. I don't know if anybody's ever heard your own voice being recorded and thought, man, I sound awesome. Most people are like, that doesn't sound like me. But we don't want people to feel like we're staring at them. We want to give them tools to be better. People are a lot more engaged when they feel like they've had success at something. So by helping them feel safe and giving them the tools to be successful, we found that people feel more part of the team. We've reduced our turnover back down to 84% in 22, and we increased our add-on execution Q4 over Q4 by 12%. The profit from the 12% increase, from 56 to 68% success, is more than our total cash loss the prior year. Even when it was at the 0.27, we're making more money than we were losing by helping people be successful at something that we're already paying them bonuses to be good at. The other advantage we've seen is a hugely increased awareness that, yes, there are cameras around and they can pull stuff up and they can see what's going on. So our cash loss is down to 0.04. It's back down to where it should have been, with hugely increased profits and much better retention with the employees.